Or we continue to wander with Exodus 16. Here now, starting in verse 22. On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers for each person. And the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it until morning." So they saved it until morning as Moses commanded, and it did not stink, and it did not get maggots in it. "Eat it today," Moses said, "because today is a Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will not be any." Nevertheless, some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather it, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day he gives you bread enough for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where he is on the 7th day. No one is to go out." So the people rested on the 7th day. The people of Israel called the bread manna. It was a white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna and keep it for the generations to come, so that they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the desert when I brought you out of Egypt." So Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer of manna in it. Then place it before the Lord to be kept for the generations to come." As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron put the manna in front of the testimony, yes, that it might be kept. The Israelites ate manna for 40 years, until they came to a land that was settled. They ate the manna until they reached the border of Canaan.
God says to Israel, bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. When Moses gets the people all the way to the promised land, and he stops there at the border and reminds them of what the 10 commandments are, when he gets to that commandment to keep the Sabbath, here's what he tells them. He says, "You'll do this because you'll remember that you were slaves in Egypt. In Egypt, you weren't quite people. You were reduced to what you could do. You were reduced to the outcome of your work. You were reduced to being kind of a function, a brick-making people." Here God is telling them, that's not who you are. That's not who you are. You're not just what you do. You're people. You're my people. Sabbath, actually, and this is a common misconception, Sabbath doesn't mean the 7th. Sabbath actually means stop. Here God is saying, this is the time to stop. I've given you a time to stop. Not just to be someone who is all the time working, but to stop. And in that stop, in that pause, there you have time, you have space for friendship with God, for friendship with each other, for friendship with all of creation. That's the difference between now and Egypt. You are not just a brick-making people. You are my people. You're a holy people. You are a kingdom of priests who are going to enjoy me and represent me forever. That's the message of Sabbath that God is giving to Israel here.
God is calling the people of Israel to something new. He's introduced yet another new element into the instruction and into this wilderness life and into understanding what it is to be a community called together. And this new thing is called Sabbath. And it calls us away from the temptation of wanting to be in control of everything. Because who doesn't want to be in control of everything? We think we know best. We think we know better. But it's really not that our work is what keeps everything moving and everything going. When we stop and observe the Sabbath and look to God, we realize and appreciate and come to acknowledge how God is truly in control and that everything around us is that gift, a blessing from God. But that only happens when we stop to appreciate it and allow God to have that control. and to put that experience into the form of worship. Because I think in the space of just learning to stop and let God be in control for Sabbath, it also allows us to be thankful for what God does provide. And for the people of Israel, that is what they're experiencing this week with manna. And they're looking at where before God's telling his instruction through Moses, you can only take just your amount, just your one little bit, just for the day, just what you need. And here God's already making an exception, but God's making an exception so that they can be called away and put their time and energy into something else. And again, it's not their hard work of collecting the manna every day that is providing them the sustenance and the nourishment they need. It is God providing these things for them to gather. But even when they don't have to gather, they realize that they can spend more time with God in worship. They don't have to put all the efforts into collecting and to taking care of things, but just enjoy the beauty of God being in control of everything and letting that take on a whole new form of the day. This is different from every other day of the week for them, and it is a break in who they used to be, looking to being slaves in Egypt, to understanding who they are now.
Lent may be a time where we say stop, and not just stop with chocolate or Coke or that thing that it's such a sacrifice for us to give up. But it might also mean, stopping that feeling that we have to do it all, that we're the ones who are fundamentally responsible. God is the one who holds the universe together. God is the God of everything. And if God says that we can stop, we can stop. We'll see you next week.